Hello everyone and welcome to this week's episode of the Aftermath series. Let us waste no time at all and dive right into this week's episode of Critical Role. And boy, what an episode. It was so fun and refreshing. It was just a very nice change of pace from the previous episodes we've had recently. And honestly, an episode like this one is perfect for those who haven't seen the show or are trying to get into it. It was kind of a filler episode, and I use heavy air quotations, and what I mean by that is that it was kind of a break from the main story, I suppose, since we had the addition of Twiggy, who we'll get to in just a moment. We've been following Ford's arc for a little while now, and this was kind of a break from that. So I would highly recommend, if there are friends of yours who are still on the fence about watching the show, I think last night's episode is perfect. You know, it showcases everyone's personalities very well with the addition of Twiggy. There were some high-risk battles, there was some mystery, there were some interesting magical objects, a wizard study, just a lot of classic Dungeons & Dragons shenanigans going on in last night's episode, which I think shows perfectly what the show is all about. And now, talking about Twiggy, oh my gosh, she was absolutely phenomenal. I loved her so much, and Deborah's role-playing was just so natural and beautiful. The way she was describing how she was doing things, I was completely blown away by her character. And honestly, the energetic and chaotic nature of Twiggy, I think, is exactly what the Mighty Nine needed at this point. And with Twiggy being in the group, and given her personality, it seemed like the Mighty Nine had to sort of act as parents. And different kind of parents than when they had Kiri in the group, since Twiggy is a bit more of a wild card, I would say. But you know, she did add such an interesting layer and sort of dynamic to the group. And it definitely seemed like she could teach the Mighty Nine a lesson or two about how to live life and enjoy it to the fullest, and not take things too seriously. But I just loved everyone's reactions, particularly Clay and Twiggy, since Twiggy is just sort of all over the place with her thoughts. She doesn't really have a plan. And Clay even tried. He tried to like sort of, you know, take a moment, sort of calm her down a bit and tried to figure out her thought process and if she had any plans. It was just a very interesting conversation between two contrasting personalities. And then of course Jester is absolutely in love with her. You know, Twiggy seems like how Jester would have been as a child, or Twiggy seems to be the perfect child for Jester. They're both just very bubbly and energetic, and I wish we could have seen more of them together. And then she formed an interesting relationship or bond with Caleb. Now we know Caleb is always fascinated by new things to learn or discover, so it was no surprise that he took particular interest in this sphere that she had. And this sphere was giving me some heavy Treasure Planet vibes, if any of you have seen that movie. But she was showing Caleb an interesting kindness that he's not used to. Now obviously Twiggy does not know any better, and she doesn't know anything about his backstory, but it was just interesting how open she was with him, how affectionate she was, and it's definitely something Caleb is not used to. So it'll be interesting to see how he sort of reflects on that sort of relationship they had, and how he will deal with relationships in the future, and the relationships he has with the members of the Mighty Nine. However, under this adorable persona of Twiggy, there might be a tragic backstory. It would appear that she was kidnapped by this Sir Cadogan, and maybe her parents were murdered, killed. Perhaps she was experimented on in that sort of dungeon she was being kept in. Because she does blame Cadogan for her mental state, her sort of crazy nature. So what was Cadogan doing to her? And he better watch out, because he made a new enemy in the Mighty Nine. And also, how did he come to have this sphere in his possession? It seems to have belonged to a very powerful wizard by the name of Hollis. Just more mysteries to uncover in Port Damali. So moving on to a few other things that happened this episode. Inside the study, I just think it's so funny how nonchalant the party was when the Mimic attacked. The only ones that seemed to care were, well, Not and Twiggy, since they were swallowed by it, and then Jester, who was sort of trying to help get rid of it as soon as possible. But everyone else just seemed to just not even care, you know, it's just a Mimic, they can handle it. I just love that picture in my head of just everyone else just sort of not really caring as Not and Twiggy are sort of screaming and trying to kill this thing. And then we have Ford and Bo, whose relationship seems to be strengthening as Bo requested to become the first mate for Ford. An interesting turn as in the beginning of the episode, Bo sort of went off on Ford a little bit for trying to stick his nose in other people's business. So it's just nice to see Bo actually apologizing and then seeking to learn the ways of being a first mate. So it'll just be nice to see how their relationship grows in this sort of teacher-student dynamic. And now, Caleb this episode, he just seemed to be, in general, very overwhelmed with everything that was happening. It seemed like he was a little bit out of his comfort zone, especially with Twiggy's naive affection and Hollis's study. You know, there are so many books, so many magical objects, so many things to learn and discover in this room, but unfortunately it was cut short because of Ford disappearing through this portal. But back to Caleb, and I guess sort of everyone in the Mighty Nine, after that battle with the dragon, which was very scary, by the way. They easily could have died if they weren't careful, and some of them almost did. But anyways, everyone in the Mighty Nine seemed sort of down and defeated and sort of in this sort of haze. And Caleb in particular, since it seemed kind of strange because he seemed very caught up in all of the books that he was surrounded by, all the magical objects, and then he had to leave the study to go find Ford, and they landed, and there was the dragon, and none of their friends were in sight except Jester, and then Clay was saying, "It's bad, we gotta go," which was absolutely hilarious, a great one-liner. But then once they escaped, Caleb seemed really depressed. Now, it could have just been a mounting of everything that happened that episode, or was it something else? Because Caleb wasn't near death, Not was, so it's possible that Caleb being depressed was sort of him realizing that, they are mortal, they can die, and seeing Not almost die may have made him realize all of this. And it also could be the fact that he had to leave all of those books behind and he couldn't really gain any knowledge from them. Or maybe it was something about the dragon, because he seemed fine until he landed down in there and saw the dragon and then had to escape. And all of a sudden this huge mood change happened in him. Or maybe I missed something that you guys can see. And then poor Jester, she was also one of the ones that had almost died in this horrible battle. And just the fact that she feels that everyone abandoned her just makes it even more depressing, because she has to know that they would never intentionally and maliciously abandon her. It was just a very terrible situation that they all had to get out of, and they probably just assumed that she would be able to get out on her own. And then, upon Caleb and Not falling down and then trying to get out, Jester on death's door and not taking a few hits decides to be not the brave and take the reaction from the dragon, leaving her at 1 hit point, but then allowing Jester to leave safely. Not definitely deserved her title at that moment. Just such a beautiful, wonderful moment that Jester definitely appreciates. And then once they were all out, they were gone for 7 days. How is it even possible? Now, they were traveling through like pocket dimensions or something, so time may have stretched and shrunk when they were in those passing areas. But my god, what is this sphere and what is it fully capable of? Did they see everything that it has to offer, or is there more to it? And who is this Hollis? Is he still alive? Is he in one of these pocket dimensions or areas within the sphere, just living his life? When they were down in the dragon's sort of lair, they didn't notice any fresh corpses, I don't think. But obviously something is keeping this dragon alive. And I'm wondering what was in store if the Mighty Nine decided to explore the other 100 chambers within this dimension. It'll definitely be something they have to go back to once they're a bit more leveled up. And then out of all the members, Bo and Clay were the ones that were okay after the situation. After all the chaos and the high energy and the mystery of the episode, we got to sort of end it all with a very sort of mellow-toned conversation between Bo and Clay. How they have to be the anchor for the Mighty Nine in this situation. They have to make sure their spirits stay lifted, that they stay focused on the task at hand, and that they don't get caught up on almost dying and almost failure. They can't dwell on the past, and Bo and Clay need to make sure that the other members are going to be okay. And that conversation was really just a perfect way to end the episode. But with all of that, we are going to wrap up. Let me know what you guys think down below. What were your impressions of Twiggy when you first saw her? What are your thoughts on the dynamic and layers she added to the group and her bond with Caleb? And what do you think of this sphere, and who is Hollis, and what kind of relics was that dragon guarding? What are the Mighty Nine gonna do next? So many new questions, and so many of them left unanswered, and the best part is I don't think we're gonna get any answers to them anytime soon. but I certainly don't think Caleb is quite done with that sphere yet, or with Hollis. So I'm sure we'll see Caleb sort of tinkering with it a bit more and trying to figure out more about that whole situation. But that is going to be it for me today. I hope you all have a fantastic rest of your weekend, and I will see you all next week.